Do you find yourself getting super frustrated when you're in control of a point and you should be moving forward, but you're not quite sure how to? Do you feel like you're coming up on short balls and you keep getting past? Or do you feel like you're creating all these opportunities and you always end up getting burned and just don't know what's causing it? Well, in this video, we're gonna tackle a bunch of different ways to get to the net, and maybe you might even find out why the way you're choosing might be the reason that you're having trouble getting there. So in this video, we're gonna be going through 7 different ways to get to the net and be super offensive and be super confident with moving in and finishing out points. And as we roll through these, you might be figuring out maybe if you choose a different style that suits your game more, suits the way you like to move or the way you like to hit, you might become more effective with the way you're transitioning to the net and winning more points instead of being super concerned about how to get there. You'll start being super concerned with how to get there more. So yes, guys, like I said, there are 7 ways to get to the net. I know 7's a big number. Most of us just think, hey, hit a short ball and move in. But there's actually way more to it than that. And when you start to kind of unlock what goes into each way to get to the net, you might start figuring out, hey, maybe the shots that I like to use are the reason that I should pick one style over another. I'll give you an example. If you're a huge server or a big server, a super accurate server, and you like to see people getting super stretched out, or they're always uncomfortable returning your serve, you might look into serving and volleying, which is a common play style. But you might also be the person who wants to try to serve and volley, but you're not that person. You don't have the super huge serve. People tend to feel like they're comfortable returning your serve, and now you're thinking, well, serve and volley is one of the few ways I know how to get there, and you're getting in trouble. Let's define what transitioning is, though, so we can start putting things into categories. Transitioning is any shot or any play style that gets you from the baseline, which you see here, to somewhere beyond the service line, which you see here. And depending on the way you do it, you'll start to receive different responses from the people on the other side. As I used it in my earlier example, serving and volleying, if you serve, you're already at the baseline, but because you're using a shot that you're fully in control of, you have the ability to kind of predict what's most likely to come back off of the return that the person's hitting. So we're able to kind of cut off angles, and you're able to move appropriately based on the ball that you choose. But the other 6 are less commonly known, or some of them are. An example would be your traditional approach shot, which usually we're playing a point and we find ourselves standing somewhere right up in here, and we just take our short ball and then we keep moving forward. In this video, I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to start segueing through a couple, and then I'll pick it up in the next installment of the video, and maybe even a part 3, depending on how long it takes to get through these ones. But what we're going to start with is the traditional approach shot. Traditional means that we play the point at the baseline, and then we receive a short ball, and then we hit our short ball and we move in, hopefully being able to put away and finish the point. We're going to start with that one, and then what we'll pick up on after that one is number 2. Okay, so right now I have George set up in the back. George is our resident ball machine when we don't have a practice partner. And George is just putting balls straight down the center for me. And all I'm doing is receiving most of my balls right around this area here. I'm going to let them bounce, and then I'm going to step back and rally them as if I was playing a point. Now, I'm only going to do it here just so I can stay in focus of the camera, but essentially my goal would be make sure I stay pretty close to the baseline so that I'm able to quickly react if the ball drops a little bit shorter. Now, the reason why I'm going to use the ball machine is some of the balls in the ball machine are older or lighter, and because of that, what will happen is most of the balls will land deep, but occasionally the ball machine is going to fire a ball out that's a little bit shorter. That's going to be my cue to get off of the baseline. The thing you want to know when you're practicing the traditional approach shot is you have to be close to the baseline or be really fast. So for example, you take somebody like Rafael Nadal, who likes to play way back here. It's tougher to get up onto a good approach shot because you have more room to cover. But if you hit from the baseline and then you always return to right about this zone here, it's very easy to quickly react up and not waste a short ball because you're just a few steps closer. So I'm going to use this ball machine and start getting them firing, and all I'm going to do is pause the video when you guys see me start stepping in to a ball. So that's obviously keeping me back. George, I probably could have stepped in on that one. this one here. Now I find myself in the blue. This would be probably my good example of a chance to move in. Now you want to be able to hit a pretty affirmative ball. If not, you just, and then push your weight back. But the first step is getting off of this baseline and getting into that zone. The first goal is always recognizing your opportunities. If you don't recognize your opportunity, then you're going to end up probably falling into some of the other play styles. But now that we kind of got step one, which is you have to see the short ball, now let's start by going a step further and going, what do we do with the short ball? Okay, so here we are right in that transition zone, and I've reset George to give me the short ball that I want rather than just a random short ball. So the short ball is going to land somewhere around here. Now, if you guys remember from an earlier video that we did, there are 4 basic ways to hit the ball. There's a little bit of variety within it, but you basically have a slice, your flat shot, your heavy forehand, and your, sorry, it's not fair to say heavy forehand, your heavy ball and your rally ball. Now, basically, if we look at it and we were going to do math, your flat ball is like 90% power to like 10% spin. Your heavy ball is like 90% spin to like 10% power. That's just all based on your swing path. And then your rally ball is somewhere in the middle, like 50-50 or 60-40. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use, for starters, I'm going to use the heavier shot, meaning that I'm taking a more vertical swing path. I'm trying to get the ball to get up and down because as I'm taking a ball from here, my court is a lot shorter. And because I'm taking the shorter shot, I need to make sure that I get the ball up over the net, but also make sure I don't run out of court before the ball lands on the ground. When you're using this one, you also have the luxury of usually giving yourself a little bit more time than when you take your flat counterpart. But I'm going to run through how to use each one. But essentially, when the ball comes to you, you want to make sure you get a lot of vertical motion and come up through it, and then you'll see a lot of that motion right there. Really vertical, up and down, and then from there you'll be able to make your move and come in behind the shot. Now, when we make that move, we want to make sure our body weight follows that shot. So we're usually in a closed stance and pushing up through, and usually we'll also add in that little leg hop, which makes our momentum continue to go into the court. That move works almost all the time. The only problem with this option, and again, we're going to be giving you guys the pros and the cons, when you hit a heavier approach shot, your ball is usually a little bit slower. There's a higher percentage chance that the person will come up with an attempt to hit a passing shot unless the ball's just out of their reach. So if you take this option, just understand that because you're not powering through the court, your bounce is going to be doing most of the work. And if your ball is within reach, the person may have a chance, even though it's probably going to be on the edge of their reach. You're making sure that at least you get a chance to get to the net. Now, on the other version of it, when we go more flat, that's more of a timing thing. We need to let the ball come up higher than the height of the net so that we can then take a more linear path through. Now, when we take the flatter version, the benefit of it is, as I said, the ball gets through the court quickly, so you're taking time away from the person. But the downside is you have a higher chance of overhitting because you don't have as much spin to bring the ball down. You also have to wait a little bit for the ball to sit at the right height, and you give yourself less time to get to the net. Now, you have to weigh out which one suits your game more, but again, there's benefits and disadvantages to both. The reason I'm only demonstrating the heavier one is because it's more about the positioning of it than it is about how to hit the shot. All you have to do when you want to go for your flat ball is just arrive and take it at a higher point, whereas with the heavy one, you want to arrive lower and come up with the shot. So once we've done that, now let's talk about where does the ball go and why. So I'm going to move this camera, I'm going to move George into a position that makes more sense, and then I'll explain why he's there and what I do next. Okay, so as a cool little visual, I'm going to actually put the camera behind George. So you're basically going to be attempting to hit a passing shot as well as giving up the short ball. In the camera view, you'll see the visual of when you get the short ball and the ball goes to your opponent and you do the right thing, whether it's flat or hit the ball heavy, and then them trying to pass. When you hit your short ball as your traditional transition approach shot, you're actually going to need to move over toward that side. Not all the way over on top of the line, for example, but usually about 3 to 4 feet off of center. Meaning, if I was standing at the center of the court, I should move about 3 or so feet this way, covering the side of the shot that I hit. So if I hit my approach shot to the ad side, visually, I should move over to the ad side. If I hit my approach shot to the deuce side, visually, I should move over to the deuce side. And the reason that we do that is to basically put ourselves as close to the center of what the 2 best shots that the person can hit are. Now, the 2 best shots that I like to use as a measuring tool are, let's say, 3 by 3 into one baseline corner and 3 by 3 into another baseline corner. We're not factoring in the sharp passing shot angle, which is located around here. The reason why we're not factoring that shot in is because that shot's very difficult to hit under pressure. The easier shots to hit are always going to be deep line or deep cross, and going super heavy and up the back of the ball when you're under pressure is high risk and usually ends up not being as clean a shot as you want. And in most cases, if they can make it, it was too good for you to hit anyway. So we're going to cover the 2 basic shots. So if George here were to try to pass me down the line and try to pass me cross court to the baseline over there, if I put myself in the middle of those 2 shots, it actually ends up being closer to the ad side of the court, well, which we're standing on. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hit the approach shot back to here. You will see the ball come back in, and then you'll also see George try to pass me down the line. Then I'll switch it up, and I'll put myself in the exact same position, but I'll have George shoot the ball over the other way. And when he shoots it the other way, I'll put myself in the exact same position, and we'll be able to see that both shots are coverable if you move to the right place. All this has nothing to do with the actual type of approach shot that you hit. What we're trying to do is create as much pressure on this side as possible, and then once we've created that pressure, we just put ourselves in the best position at the net, and then from there we let the cards fall however they fall. If they can come up with a great shot, great. If we can get ourselves onto the volleys, then even better. We are in position and we can do the things we need to do. And I want you guys to understand as we go through this is you're playing the numbers game. There will always be a shot you can't cover. There will always be balls that get past you from time to time. But by following the methodology behind each one of these shots that we go through, you'll understand that by putting yourself in the best position, you're going to win most of the points from that position. So without talking about it anymore, let's get right into the exercise. Okay, so hopefully the microphone isn't too staticky since I am pretty far away from the camera. But if you guys can't hear me, I will know, and I'll do a quick voiceover. So the ball machine is going to be firing the ball right about here. I'm going to take my approach shot towards the camera, and then I'm going to move appropriately. I'm going to go with the heavy shot first, move in, and cover. I'm going to go with that heavy ball. Oh, wow, that's even worse. There we go. No warm up. There we go. Heavy ball right there, split. Come in for the cover. Reset. Oh, that one's down the line. And come through there. Now, if you notice, I'm not at the middle. I'm also not right on the line. I'm coming at it from off center, split, and then wherever the ball goes, it goes. So if I was at the net already, look at where I'm standing, and within one leaning step or one big step, I can cover most of those passing shots. And most balls that you have off of an approach aren't going to be the best struck balls. They're going to be a little slower, maybe a little higher, unless you're doing a bad job with your approach shot and you're hitting it like that, where they can actually take a big swing at it. Most of your shots are going to sit for a bit, and you can come in and just finish off. The biggest problem that you're going to run into is based off of the type of approach shot that you use. If you use a bad approach shot, like choosing heavy when you should go flat, or choosing flat when you should go heavy, or even slicing your approach shots, the problem that you're going to run into is you're opening up the opportunity for your opponent to do better against you. So as you guys saw though, I planted myself right there, and the ball came right, it seemed like it came right to me even though I was nowhere near it. Now I'm going to flip the ball machine and use it on the opposite side. So George is going to try to pass me way off to the other side, and I'm going to put myself in the same position just to show you guys how easy it is to actually cover the shot, provided you follow the same playbook. So I'm going to still take my approach shot here, but then George is going to try and pass me way off the other way, and we'll see if by moving the same way I can reach to the other side. Okay, so we're all set up on the other half of the court now. And again, my first ball is going to come right to here. I'm going to hit my approach shot over to that same side, but we're going to look at if the coverage works the way it's supposed to, even if they try to pass me on the other side. So if you recall, the first one was set up to pass me down the line. This one's going to be set up to pass me same distance on the other side of the court. So I'll take my approach shot first, just like before. Just go slow there, move this way. One big step, and I'm on it. So again, while positioning myself here, and again, not dramatically stepping, my approach shot comes this far over here, one big step, and that volley is on. Now this is decided by you getting close enough. The further back you are, the further the cross-court shot can get away from you. So when they try and pass you cross-court, now that's way out of my reach if I'm hesitating to make the move in, which a lot of people get past for that reason. There's no way I can get there. But if I get in and close up that angle a bit, one step, and I'm done. Again, pick your approach shot based off of what you want your outcome to be. Okay, so we've used the ball machine and we've talked about the logic of everything. So now you want to know, how do I go out and I practice this? Here's how you do it. You set yourself up with a practice partner, and you can do this a couple of ways. You can have them deliberately give you short balls and play games where they feed you a short ball, you take your approach shot to either side, and you just practice getting into position quick enough and seeing if they can pass you. And the other thing you can do is you run through a couple of drills of just, short ball, volley, short ball, volley. But whatever you do, you want to practice both together. Most people don't have a volleying problem. Volleying is actually one of the easiest shots to learn because it has the least mechanics to it. All you have to do is actually do nothing and maybe move a little bit as you start to get better. But if you're standing at the net holding your racket firm in your hand properly, the ball will basically do all the work. But when you start trying to get proactive with hitting volleys, that's when it can get a little bit more technical, but it's still way less involved than all the mechanics involved in hitting a really good forehand or a really good serve. Volleying is actually one of the most simple things to learn. That's why you see the most recreational players always seem to have decent volleys, but you see them with like really weird strokes as comparison. So when you go out on the court to practice these things, there's a bunch of different ways to go about doing it, but the main thing is always put the two shots together. Practice hitting different types of approach shots. Are you going to take it flat, which it sits up and then we hit through? Are you going to try and take it heavy where you let the ball drop a little bit and you really rip through it? You might even try and hit a heavy ball a little bit at a higher point so you can get it down into the court. It's whatever fits your preference. But as we go through these videos, I wanted to make sure we set the groundwork of this first, because this coverage that we used still applies to every other one of the transition skills that we're going to use. So all of the skills that we're going to use in the 7 ways to get to the net are actually going to be based off of still being able to cover the net appropriately, which means knowing where you want to hit the ball and knowing where to stand as you're moving in. Approaching the net is one of the most intentional things you should ever do when you play tennis. You can be kind of flying by the seat of your pants when you play baseline to baseline, and a lot of kids and adults still have fun and still have a pretty productive practice or productive matches without really having any super thought out plan. But when we start talking about approaching, there's a lot of geometry and thought that goes into it. So you want to make sure you're being very intentful with how you move to the net. So that's going to wrap up this video because I knew there was a lot that was going to go into this one. But as we build out the other videos, what we're going to talk about is the other 6 ways. But we started with, again, this is number 1, the traditional baseline, short ball, then volley. And then from there, we're going to build out the more complicated ones that have more technical things involved. But this one, you see a lot on the professional tour, both men and women. This is actually the 2nd most used version of approaching the net. Not the first. This is the 2nd most used version of approaching the net. Put a comment down below if you think you know, without me telling anybody what the styles are, if you think you know what the most common version of getting to the net is on the men's or women's tour. But that's going to wrap this video up, and we will see you guys in the next one.